record to the cloud.
Okay.
All right. All right, we'll go ahead and get started. Couple of questions for you. Would you rather me just talk from start to finish on things that I do, best practices, and then we have a round table at the end? Or would you rather share best practices and put your thoughts in as we go so that it's kind of a round table discussion?
I like hearing what you have to say and then discussing at the end because we don't want to miss out on what you've prepared and what you want to share.
Okay.
But that's
These,
just me.
oh, okay. What about everybody else? You're good with that? Okay. Karen has 1,000 thumbs coming up. There we go. Okay. So we'll go ahead and do that. If at any point in time, because I can't see you, you need something, throw it in the chat or someone yell. So, all right. This is not a fancy PowerPoint. I am probably the one of the least creative PowerPoint people on the face of the planet. Very basic and just a few things that I came up with to start and maintain a support group. So I got started in support groups 2002-ish. I started working for the Depression and Bipolar Support Alliance of Greater Houston. So I was in the Houston area, started working for them and did that for about 12, 13 years, maintained 6 support groups per month. And so I had not only individuals support groups, I had an adult group, I had a child group, I had a parent group, a young adult group. And so that is my passion and where I got started in mental health is that my oldest son, he is now 34, has a diagnosis of bipolar disorder. And so as a parent of some of a young person struggling with mental health, it was my way of giving back and not only receiving support from the persons in my group. So transitioned that when I came to Austin about 11 years ago, transitioned that into dementia support groups. I've led numerous support groups for senior living communities. The marketing people will reach out to me and ask me if I will start their group. And we'll talk more about how I guide that and what my stipulations on starting a group look like. You are welcome to share any single bit of this information that you get here tonight. Use it as you will. I can also send an email back to everybody on the email loop with the attached PowerPoint and my attached outline, if that would be helpful. So let me see if I can advance that. Okay. So what is support? We talk an awful lot about support groups, but really, what does that mean? For most of us in dementia care, and really in my mental health world, what that meant was emotional support. It meant empathy and understanding and comfort. Could it be also that they were seeking guidance and advice or some sense of socialness, of camaraderie? Someone understood. It was almost like sitting in a group, pouring out what was going on in our life and everybody else in the room nodding in support of, like, yeah, me too. Me too. I've got that. Um, and so we understand what that is. So when I say what is support, it goes right in line with why are we even starting the group? What do you want the group participants to get out of the group? And why is it even important that we start a group like this? Oh, that's not going to advance. Okay. So why start a support group? So we have to define the purpose. What's our mission? Who's our audience? And what are our values? 9 times out of 10, and I'll just be real honest with you, when our senior living communities are starting support groups, it's to gain folks to move in. It's marketing. And that's an awful lot of why They're starting their group. Every senior living community has a support group, but there could also be support groups for hospice companies, for home health companies, and churches start a support group. Could be for numerous different reasons, not just dementia care, but that's the majority of why we're here. I took a mission statement off of a dementia support group website, and what their mission statement is this group exists to provide a safe and supportive space for dementia caregivers to share experiences, offer emotional support, and exchange practical advice. I love that mission statement. I don't think too many of us that do start a support group think of it in those granular terms of we have a mission statement, but that really defines our purpose, why we've started the group. Another thing to think about is who is our audience? Who's going to benefit from the group? Is it people out in the community that could potentially see our community and want to be a part of that group because it's local? Could it be a specific age range, like young adults? Lorenzo's House, for those that are familiar with that, their support group is for those that are that have an adult, have a parent or person in their life who has young onset. My audience in my Lewy body dementia support group are care partners of persons living with Lewy body. I also have a group that is specifically for persons living with Lewy body and their care partner. I also have a support group for professional caregivers. So that one has been very interesting. People come and go as they will. We talk an awful lot about dementia, about assisted living, being a caregiver, what that looks like, and how our role is defined. And so we talk an awful lot about state regulations and how we can support our team members. Um, Core values. We all understand that this is compassion and understanding and empathy, but we also have to understand that it's privacy and respect for others in the group. We use a lot of I statements in support groups. Instead of telling me or pointing, wagging your finger and telling me what I should be doing, say, this has worked for me, and you might find this helpful yourself. Another thing to think about is when and where. What's your structure and your format? In my Lewy body dementia groups, when we began the groups, when I assumed the groups 8 years ago, it was a once a month for two separate groups. We had one here in the Austin area. We had one in Marble Falls, which is 45 minutes to the west. And so I assumed both of those groups and they met once a month. I also started a Kyle group, which is south of Austin, and then I started a North group, which was in Georgetown. And so we had four groups going, but when COVID happened in 2020, we moved all of our groups online. And so we have a care partner group that meets first and third Saturdays at 10 a.m. That is a good time for most care partners that aren't working, that are working, that can join us on the weekend. And if they're retired, Saturday, it doesn't matter the day that we meet on. We also have a Living Together with Lewy group, which is for individual living or diagnosed with Lewy body dementia or Parkinson's disease dementia, multiple cortical atrophy. I do have a person in my group that the only symptom they have is Capgras syndrome. So that has been helpful to them. And we meet once a month. So my professional care partner group, caregiver group, meets twice a month, every other second and fourth Wednesdays. So, but we're looking at moving that time because a lot of caregivers are working, and it's not a great time for us. So we're looking at when should we move that, or should we keep it where it is and know that there's a very transient um, persons that come to that group. Time and duration. How much time do you dedicate to a group. Some of our support groups are 1 hour and that is it. And they wrap up and they go. In my care partner groups that meet on first and third Saturdays, I will do 90 minutes. I tell folks at the very beginning of the group, we do a soft stop at 60 minutes. So if you need to go, wave and log off. But we will do a hard stop at 90 minutes, and I cannot go past that time. So my co-facilitator also can only give us an hour. So she logs off after an hour. Um, my mental health support groups, when I ran those, were 1 hour. And that's a good time to keep people's attention for that amount of time, but it also respects people's time that pop in on a group for an hour and then need to go to another appointment. Location. When I was running my groups, um, when I was doing my mental health groups, which was a little unnerving. A couple of my groups met at the psychiatric hospitals, and we had to be buzzed in and out. We had to leave all of our personal items in a locker. For those that are new to the group, that can be a little unnerving. My Lewy body groups 8 years, 7, 8 years ago before COVID, they were mainly either in senior living communities or in churches. And we found that those were good spaces for us to be able to lead those groups. Now that COVID has happened, we moved all of our groups online. So we were the only group in the entire Texas area serving those with Lewy body dementia. And so our group grew. So we are nationwide now. Although we're based in the Central Texas area, I'm in Austin. My co-facilitator is in Austin. We have people all over the nation that join us. California, Chicago, Adirondacks, Colorado, Florida. And so our groups would not continue to work if we went back in person. So we're staying online. Folks like it online. They can still be at home with their person and not have to get up on a Saturday morning, get dressed, and make it across town. So we keep ours online. So. Um, So now you've thought about starting a support group. You know why, you know who, you know time and location. How do you get the word out for your group? You could partner with other providers in the area, hospice companies, senior living communities. You could get the word out with your hospital case managers, elder care consultants like myself, so that as we meet with our clients, we can certainly share that word. Here in the Austin area, I have become the Lewy body person. So I market and share my collaterals. I have a postcard that supports all of my support groups. And I pass that postcard out to our neurology clinics, our hospice companies, our home health companies. My movement disorder specialists are huge for me. And I drop by about a dozen postcards a month. They keep them in their waiting room and they're all gone every single month. So I have a lot of people joining that group, a lot of word of mouth. There could be a digital presence to how you get the word out about that group. I have for my groups, if someone will simply email me, I will add them to the email distribution list. An email goes out once a month at the very beginning of the month that lists every single one of our groups and the associated link. And then 2 days before each group time, I send out another email that gives just that group and just that link. So people seem to love that. My care partner group Zoom link has stayed the same for 4 years. My Living Together with Louie group link is a separate link, but that has also stayed the same for 4 years. So if for one reason or another you don't get the email, you can't find it, go back to a previous one. The link always stays the same. So flyers, where you distribute, Where's your target audience? Where will they be? Are they clinics? Are they movement disorders specialists? Are they neurologists? Churches. Churches are a good way of dropping off really good value based. Churches do not like to be sold to. So don't go in there trying to, it in my area, Austin, you cannot get past the gatekeeper. They don't want to be sold to. You can't go in looking for business. However, if you're offering a value based, this is a free support group. We'd love to have the people in your church that could benefit from that. That goes over a lot better in our area. So again, I drop off those postcards, and those are typically always distributed throughout the month. Meeting structure. How do you set up your meeting from your welcome? What's the topic for discussion? Is it open discussion and sharing time? How do you close your meetings? I do, when I was running my mental health support groups, I had to be very stringent about an opening statement. And I gave that statement regardless if there were any new people in the group or not. So, for example, you are welcome to share the information that you get here today, but we ask that you refrain from sharing the identities of the individuals who share it. We want to make sure that this is a safe and trusting place to share. The one limit to confidentiality is when we have knowledge that there is abuse and neglect happening, and then we're going to reach out to you and have a conversation to help you find the resources that you need. I was required to make that statement every single time without fail. When I assumed the Lewy body dementia group, I had that statement, and it was very ingrained in me to have that statement. But from time to time, we will not have new people in the group. I make a little quip about, you guys are old hats at this. We don't need to have our opening statement. You understand that what is said here stays here. We're all good to go. Everybody nods, gives a thumbs up, and we're good. We all know each other by now. But if I have a new person in the group, I have our opening statement once again. And really, where I feel this is helpful is as you have new people join the group, it sets the tone for the group. They know the rules of the group. They understand that they're coming into a very hallowed space, that no topic is off limit, but yet we have to understand that in the state of Texas, any adult over the age of 18 is a mandated reporter. Not only am I professional, but I am over the age of 18, and I am mandated to report any abuse or neglect I see. People understand we have gotten close to that topic before. Um, I have thought many times about whether by saying that opening statement, if I am not opening up people to be free to admit that things are going on in their house. And so sometimes if I read between the lines, I can tell that they're really struggling and they need some help. And I always reach out to them in that instance. So, but we do have a welcome. We briefly check in. In my Living Together with Louie group, we have a joke of the day. It starts our group off really well, and it's typically our persons living with dementia that will share a joke. They're corny jokes. Sometimes they make sense, sometimes they don't. It's knock, knock. Who's there? Rose. Rose was walking down the street and saw Ed. Everybody laughs. It lightens the mood. It sets our group off right. So I love that they come to the group with a joke. That's a lot of fun. So we always have a topic of the group. For Lewy body dementia, oftentimes I will pick a core or supporting characteristic, and we'll talk about that. Oftentimes, what comes up over and over and over again is driving. My wife took my keys. She won't let me drive. And so we go around and around and around that topic. So about twice a year, we'll talk about driving. We've talked about sex. We've talked about every other subject under the sun that you can imagine that persons living with dementia really want to talk about, that to know that there are other people like them in the world and on the call. Care partners want to talk about those things that we don't talk about with friendships, or you go to lunch with a girlfriend and we can't talk about that, but we can talk about it in a caregiver support group. So I always have a topic. Is it a challenging situation? Is it coping with stress? Is it end of life? Um, Possibly have a guest speaker. 2020 or 2021, the topic kept coming up over and over and over again about CBD. And so we have a group here in the Austin area called Compassionate Cultivation, Dr. Mayberry. And so he popped onto our group one time, and I did record it, that talked all about how do you get a prescription for CBD? What are the indications or contraindications for using CBD? What about THC in that mix and cocktail as well? Very informative, and they have asked me to do that again. So from time to time, we will have a guest speaker. From time to time, we do hospice. We talk about everything that there is in choosing a hospice company and the decision in choosing to go with hospice. So, but we always have a topic of discussion. Open discussion and sharing. Very, very open. We are always open to talk about any single topic they want to talk about, and we're good with that. If I feel that the topic is uncomfortable for the majority in the group, I will redirect that discussion to another portion of that discussion. But if they're all interested, we'll continue with that. And we have to read our audience really, really well. Missy wasn't able to join us tonight, but the note she sent me was being a facilitator requires good observation of participants and guidance so all can share. Agree. While people are sharing, I'm not only listening to the words and what they share and how the conversation is being guided, but I'm watching people on the screen. I'm watching for people that maybe want to say something and get cut off. That's more common in our online groups, or somebody that is very, very quiet. I'm never going to call them out, but I always give opportunity for those that weren't able to share, able time to share at the very end. So I'm watching for how the information is being received, or is there someone that wants to speak and has not been given that opportunity? So we have to watch that real carefully. And then closing, how do we wrap up each session with either a positive reflection, follow ups, practical takeaways, mindfulness, or resources? I don't necessarily wrap up as much as we know we're getting close to time. I'll give a 10-minute warning, I'll give a 5-minute warning. And so it respects our time in the group. My co-facilitator in my Lewy body groups is an LPC. She is amazing at reframing. This is what I think I heard you say. Is that correct? Or the takeaways that we have from today's group. I've heard a couple mention XYZ. I rely upon her to do that because she's such a good listener and wraps up themes or feelings or conversations just beautifully. And so that's one of her greatest roles in our group, is making sure that we have good wrap ups and that everyone is heard in the group. Oftentimes I'll follow up with, I'll tack that resource onto the next email. And so you can begin seeing that. So whether it's a podcast or a webinar, something of resource that I tack on to the next email. So we do have ground rules in our groups, and it really allows newcomers to get a sense of where are the boundaries in this group. We talked about confidentiality and the limit to confidentiality. I have to make it known in my groups that if there is something going on and I feel like someone is at harm, a danger at being harmed, then I do step in. I reach out by email, or I take a phone call, and I make sure they have the resources that they need. So We want to be respectful and non-judgmental in our groups as well. We never, our group has been with each other for, I took the group 8 years ago. The group has been in existence for 15 years. And so the group polices itself. There's very, very little reining back in that I need to do. But we do say an awful lot of I statements instead of you should statements. And we want to respect everybody's views. A couple of weeks ago, we had a couple folks in our group that got incredibly political, and I let it go for a couple of statements. And then I think they sensed my hesitation and they policed themselves. And those that made some very inflammatory remarks apologized to everybody in the group. This is not the time or place. And they reined that back in. When you have a group that has been maintained for this long, it's easy to do, but you might need to step in if you're just starting a group and the group members can't police themselves. That sometimes can happen. We also want to let them know that participation is always voluntary. I'm never going to call someone out, even if they've been quiet. Participation can be active or passive. And so there are some people that hop onto the group. We have a rule that you must be on audio and video for most of the group, at least. Where this started was 8 years ago. I was allowing phone ins, and where that got abused by a couple of people is they would phone in. Of course, there'd be no video, and they would be bullies in the group. And I had to police that very, very carefully and to rein that back, and even kicked a few people out of the group because we won't tolerate bullies. But there are some people that will hop onto the group, they'll just listen, and that's okay, but they have to be on audio and video at all times. So, but they don't have to say anything. So they can just sit and listen. There is a time limit for our groups. If our group is large, I've had anywhere from 8 people hop on to 25 or 30. And when we have 25 or 30 people in an online group, sometimes it can be a little overwhelming for some people, but also some people, if not having a dedicated time trying to wrap their comments up when they go on and on and on and on. If they've been speaking for more than 5 or 6 minutes and don't take a breath, I will redirect that conversation so that we make sure that everybody gets a time to share. I've had people in some of my mental health support groups that go on and on for 10, 15, 20 minutes, and then we don't have time for everybody to share. So I tell people I'm timekeeper, and I'm the keeper of not only time and space, but I'm the keeper of the respect and the dignity that goes along with our group. So Missy also made another comment, and she said, know and decide on the purpose of the support group so that it does not turn into a Q&A session for you as the facilitator. It's okay to share resources, but be careful not to be put in the fixer role. I love that piece. When I was a newbie support group leader 20, 25 years ago, I was told point blank, the circle works upon itself. Me as the facilitator, things don't bounce off of me. Someone doesn't ask something and I'm expected to have the answer every single time. When you set the support group up well, I sit back and I don't say much of anything. I allow time and space. I allow a lot of silent time. And what happens is people are thinking, they're they're processing what that means, and is there a response I want to say to that? When the facilitator acts like they have to have every single answer, the group doesn't work as well. So I would caution against always having the answer. I oftentimes kick it back, and people will ask me point blank, well, Sarah, what are the core and supporting features of Lewy body dementia? And I'll kick it back to the group and I say, anyone want to answer that? And I'll sit back and be quiet. Therefore, the people in the group understand that the best support is from the other people in the group, not from me. How do we maintain engagement? How do we focus on self-care? We talked about a few guest speakers that we could have, themed sessions from time to time. I'll have that. And then volunteer opportunities. I always want to make sure that we focus on self-care. What are you doing for yourself? How can we best support you in that role? And I ask that a lot. And they're either thinking on how can I bring that back to me? How can I care for myself while I'm caring for someone else? Or someone else will say, hey, this is what's worked for me. Guest speakers, we've had Dr. Bayberry on before. He's been fantastic. We've had hospice show up, and I'm constantly asking the folks in the group for their feedback. Is there a speaker you would like to hear? If I hear recurring themes over and over and over again, I'll ask the group, hey, is that a guest speaker that you would like to hear from? We typically only do that once a quarter, maybe twice a year, have a guest speaker. Other than that, it's roundtable. Themed meetings. Really, what I thought when I wrote this down was, are there groups in which we could have maybe really what I thought was Brenda, when she does Memories in the Making, could there be a theme to the meeting to where we would introduce how we care give best, what other pieces we could bring into this, and that the whole group is focused on um, that piece of that, like art therapy or journaling, or that is not big in our groups, but I know that some of the other groups have done that. There is a group that meets north of us in a senior living community, and about once a month, they have someone come in that does art with them, and that is their like painting with a twist. They do that, and that's a lot of fun. They enjoy that, but they meet every week. Volunteer opportunities. How do I maintain engagement with volunteer opportunities? I talk a lot on a volunteer basis as an educator for the Lewy Body Dementia Association. So I give a lot of presentations, and I have some of my family members that have lost their person, and they tell me, you need anything, you let me know. And so what happens is I'll reach out to them if I know I'm going to be in their area. I'll say, hey, I'm giving a presentation about Lewy body dementia. Would you be willing to come and share some thoughts or give your ideas of how a support group was helpful to you? Can you share some resources that you felt were helpful to you when you were caring for your person? And they love to give back. They love to be a part of those volunteer opportunities. And I try to pull them in whenever possible. So, all right, we're getting down to the end. Resources and continued support. I put out a resource guide about once a quarter to my group. I attach it to the email, it's a PDF. And what this has morphed into in 8 years was every single great idea. Is it a podcast? Is it a website? Is it a link to the VA on how to tap into VA benefits? Is it for some of our folks that are LGBT? Here are some resources that are good for them. It's morphed into about an 8 or 10 page document. And about once a quarter, someone will ask me for it. And so I'll attach it to the email that goes out for all of our groups. And they seem to really enjoy that. These are webinar links. They're opportunities for research studies, lots of resources. Other groups. The Lewy Body Dementia Association has a ton of other groups. Some of them are on Facebook. I have the Lewy Body Dementia Resource Center offers quite a bit of support as well. I also have, there's one called LBD Caring Spouses that I oftentimes link in my emails as well. And then educational materials, I oftentimes share articles, books, podcasts, research studies, like we talked about a little bit earlier. So I give a lot of resource materials to my folks, but I typically attach it in the body of an email or attach it as a PDF. When I met in line, I had a big box that traveled with me, and those were brochures or flyers or other pieces of information that were very helpful to them, like a diagnostic checklist. I email that to a lot of people. And so then how do we sustain the group? I cannot stress enough how you always need a co-facilitator. The group cannot function around one person. One person cannot be end all be all for the support group that you lead. What happens if you're out? What happens if there's an emergency? What happens if I need to take time off? In my Lewy body support groups, very early on, I did not have a co-facilitator. And so there were sometimes I came sick. I came 10, 15 minutes late when I had something going on that I just could not coordinate times. Ever since then, I've had a co-facilitator in my groups that can either lead the group themselves. I travel quite a bit. So last year, when I went to North Carolina with a lot of you fantastic folks, I Bren is my co-facilitator. She's an LPC. She has the Zoom link. She has my credentials for Zoom. She opened the groups, led the groups, closed the groups. She was good to go. And so she's my backup in case anything happens. I also, what was it, 2 or 3 years ago, got so burnt out that I had to take time away. So I took 2 months off and she took the group from there. Very helpful when you have a co-facilitator. Um, Also know that when your time is up, it's okay to walk away. Here's the part where if I start a support group in a senior living community, the rule for me is that I will do it for 1 year, knowing full well that at the end of that 1 year, they have to be prepared to have someone follow me. I will not give my time on a volunteer basis to more than about two support groups. I just don't have the bandwidth for it. And most of us are in business to earn money. So I'll do one north, one south, and then of course I've got my Lewy body group. That is all I'll do. But knowing at the end of that 1 year, I am prepared to walk away. And typically we're already grooming a person to come after me that will take the group from there. I'm not indispensable. So I'm able to walk away and feel free to do that. Regular feedback. We always ask for feedback. Everybody has my email address. If something doesn't work or there's a topic you want to see, shoot it to me. And we're always happy to take that feedback. In-person meetups. This is an interesting one for us because our groups are all virtual and they have been for 4, almost 5 years. The In the Austin area, ours are first and third Saturdays. And we usually once in the spring and once in the fall, we have a fifth Saturday. And on those fifth Saturdays, we have a in-person meetup. So we typically get space in a senior living community. They open that up. They provide coffee and sweets and all of that for us. And we typically do a brunch. What's really been neat to see in the last year-ish is that our people from New York and Chicago, California, they'll fly in for that meeting. So it's good to see them in person, hug their neck. Most people spend all day, and we have a good time doing that. So we have built in one in the spring and one in the fall for in-person meetups here in the Austin area. This last piece, and then I'll close on this, is how close is too close and keeping it professional. When I did my mental health support groups, I was taught very early on, do not accept friend requests from people in my group. Do not go out to movies or to go out to eat. There has to be some semblance of a professional limit on how close we get to group members. I have held pretty close to that in my Lewy body groups. From time to time, someone will reach out to me and tell me what's going on in their life, and I'll respond back and forth, or we'll hop on a phone call. But I still do not accept Facebook friend requests from people in my group. There has to be some semblance of a professional limit on that. And so, um, know when to say that crosses over the line. I'll get you a professional that can talk you through that. Or, hey, can I find a resource for you? Sounds like you need someone to talk to. So I'm very adamant about that, that I keep that professional distance. That's it. That's all I've got. What are you guys thinking? Elise gave you a few ideas.
You're awesome.
Yeah, and can we open it up for some questions?
Absolutely.
Because at one point you said you were running 8 different groups, and I was just like made my heart tired all at once. I'm like, oh, how in the world? But then you said you're only doing 3, so like 8 over time you meant, or
When I was with the Depression and Bipolar Support Alliance of Greater Houston,
uh
I worked myself into a role in which I was the training facilitator for all 65 groups.
wow.
And so that was a volunteer basis,
Mm,
volunteer. But I loved it that much. I wasn't leading all the groups. I was training new facilitators. So they would come through my groups to be trained, and then I would send them off on their own. But it got to a certain point that I would take over a group so it didn't have to close, and that I was grooming my replacement, and then I'd hop right back out. So that's what I was doing. So there have been moments in time to where I've had 8 groups a month, but I
gotcha.
do not do that on a regular basis. I
Mhm.
will not do that on a
Yeah.
regular basis. Hey, Barbara.
Hi, how are you?
Hey.
Okay, I have just a question. I just want to be sure. Um, did you say that your Lewy body support group is Zoom? Is that Zoom?
That is right.
Okay, so
We do
all
Zoom.
right, so I have a person in my support group. She's the only one in the group that her husband has the Lewy body disease, and I'm looking for more information for her. She does belong to the association, the Lewy Body Association,
Good.
but if she's in northeastern Pennsylvania with me, so she would be able to attend this group. And did I understand you right in saying that there's one that is like husband and wife where both could come to the Lewy body group too?
Yes. So, Barbara, I'll take your first question. She is absolutely free to reach out to me. I put my
Okay,
email address in the chat box.
okay,
Send me an email. Have that person send me an email, or you can do a warm introduction. I'll add them to the email distribution list, and then they'll get the notice with the link.
okay,
But yes, our Living Together with Louie group is a dyad group. So it is for person living or diagnosed with dementia with Lewy bodies, Parkinson's disease dementia, multiple cortical atrophy, those whole synucleinopathies
right.
spectrum.
Hmm.
And typically they will come with a care partner. We have 2 people in our group that do not have a care partner, but they still
Okay,
come. So we
okay,
do breakout groups for those. I take the care partner group, and Bryn, as an LPC, takes our diagnosed group.
well, PC, not here, I don't think. I have LPNs in Pennsylvania. What's an
Oh, an
LPC?
LPC is a licensed professional counselor. She's a therapist.
Oh, oh, okay, maybe we have them. I just don't know about that. Okay, and one last question. The mission statement that you read right in the beginning,
Mhm.
may I steal that from you, or is that a copyright? I love it.
It is not copyrighted in any form or fashion. I stole it off ChatGPT.
Can you put that in the chat or via
So what I
email?
will is everybody on the email loop? Barbara, are you on that email loop?
Yeah,
Okay. So what I'm going to do afterwards is I will attach the recording. I'll attach the my outline, and I will attach the PowerPoint. You're welcome to use
Oh,
any of
lovely.
it,
Okay.
steal it, use it for any purpose you want.
Okay. Thank you very much, and bless your heart for all that you're doing.
Ah,
You're amazing.
thank you. I love support groups. I cannot
So
say
do
enough
I.
about support groups.
They're
So,
wonderful. Thank you.
hey, Cindy.
He- he- Here I am again. Um, just curious because everybody has to support themselves. How do you monetize this? What do you, I mean, are you, because you mentioned the groups themselves are free, which
Mhm.
we like to do. So are you supported, sponsored, or it is volunteering for you?
Great question. Typically, I have a lot of senior living communities that will ask me to start a support group. I'll do one north Austin, I'll do one south. I will only do two at a time. That's it. And they're only once a month, knowing that in a year, I'm hopping right back out. So I never do more than those two. My affiliation with the Lewy Body Dementia Association has been going 8 years strong. So I lead all of those groups volunteer. I have a statement at the bottom of my email that goes out that says that Bryn and I are both professionals in the industry. And if you reach out to us for professional service, there will be a fee associated with that. But the work that we do for LBDA is absolutely free of charge. Um, Most people, especially in the Austin area, that know I'm the Lewy body person will reach out to me afterwards and say, will you help me find a senior living community? Will you help me keep my person at home? Will you do some private consulting? So it does bring me business.
Mhm,
Um, However, I cannot in any form or fashion blur those lines. It's a conflict of interest.
mhm. Okay, thank you.
Hey, Heather.
I was curious, you said about the topics, and making sure that you have a topic going into it, but that you also like to make sure your topics are appropriate for your group. Do you try to like schedule out like in advance what all the topics are and then just shift if it seems like your group wants to go someplace else? Do you kind of prepare them for this is the theme next or the topic next week? Or is it do they just show up and kind of, okay, this is our topic tonight? How does that work for you?
Oh, great question. So typically they're organic, especially for my care partner group. I have a plethora of topics, and 9 times out of 10, it is a family that has come to me in the last week or two since we met last that has posed a question or had a circumstance. And I'll typically say, hey, I have a topic for today, but if anyone has something that's a burning question, let's go ahead and run with that. So I want to take their input first. A lot of times what they've gotten to is, no, we want to hear your topic. Your topics are so interesting. I want to hear what you've got. But typically it's, I'm working with a family and here's the challenge. What would you do? How would you handle that? What resources would we pull in? And it never really stays on that topic. It just kind of ebbs and flows and we just go down little rabbit holes but everybody's engaged. Those are never, I usually decide on that topic the morning of. My living together with Louis group, because we've got persons diagnosed in that group, some of them do need heads up on what the topic is. So when I put that notice out, I've already prearranged the topic and it's typically something that's come up in the group. So one of our participants has said, it really sucks that I have fluctuations of cognition. I never know if it's going to be a good day or a bad day. So I put that in the email that introduces the topic because some of my care partners will introduce the topic or talk about it with their person before we hop on the call. What
This
else
is
you got?
really a quiet group tonight. I'm like
Too quiet.
surprised. You wowed us. That's what you
Oh,
did.
Um, I am a firm believer. I don't know if I gave you any food for thought. Um, in 20 years of doing support groups, there's been a few things come up. And so I've probably not touched everything. You're always welcome to reach out to me at any given point in time. I'm not an expert by any means, but I firmly believe in support groups. I've had a support group of some sort for 25 years.
Yeah.
No, you've given a lot of food for thought, Sarah, a lot. And this is when I think I will be listening to the recording again a couple of times, at least.
You might need to slow me down. It's really hard when you're presenting in share screen to see everybody. So typically in those instances, I always ask for a co-facilitator that can watch people as they have questions. But you didn't say anything, so I just kept on going. So
I have one last question.
yeah.
What are your thoughts? I know some people have been providing support groups and they do charge the individuals for the support group, maybe for like a 5 or 6 week series or something like
Mm.
that. Um, or, just a couple dollars, kind of like you get a large group, then it's a little bit and it's not all volunteer. Um, I was just curious if you had any thoughts on that, or if anybody has any thoughts on that.
Well, Tipa does that. She charges for you to learn how to do it. It's called the Advanced Consultant, and it's a 5 week class. And I'm actually conducting one right now. I'm on week 4 tonight. So um, I Sarah, I'm sure you're conducting this like it's a support group tonight. So I I struggle with that, Heather, I'll be honest with you. And I am um yeah, I struggle with it. And I have a call out to another bird to talk to her
Yeah.
about it and see what her thoughts are on it too. So it's yeah.
Well, and I think with that, Karen, because I am also an advanced consultant, and I think because TIPA's group is so focused on teaching and training, less and a little bit of heart connection kinds of things. And I've never liked the start and the stop of it because it's like you get people bonded and then it would be over. So I don't
They have
know.
people that keep coming back for more and more, but I'm not sure. I don't know about how I feel about the start and stop of it. Um, but it is hard. I mean, I start tonight, and actually I started last week reaching out to people because I have people from northern Utah all the way to Texas. And I've started talking to them about, okay, let's see if we can find a support group in your area. And I reached out to Emily and Laurie for one of them and was like, hey, are you aware of any support groups for the one that lives in Texas? So I start that process about week 3 or 4 and then encourage them to attend. And then I follow up and say, hey, did you follow? Have you gone to a support group yet? Have you found one that works for you? Here's one that you might want to consider. But I do struggle with that because they do, especially this one. This one is like getting more into sharing than the others have. And it's going to be hard to have next week be the last week and then just cut it off.
I have had senior living communities offer to pay for a facilitator's time.
Yeah, I run a support group in a CCRC and they pay me for my time and can being there. Yeah.
Mhm.
I have something to say. Um, I've had a support group for 15 years also, and mine is just for the care partners. One thing and it comes up at least once a month. Some of my care partners will see counselor just for themselves, part of their self-care. So it will come up. What I offer is there's someone, I meet at a church free of charge, but there's someone in the church I will refer them to, and they will find them someone for counseling or counseling within what they call their counseling house within the church. And because they attend my group, they can go free of charge. So that's something that we offer also because it's important for some folks.
Yeah. There have been some times that I've reached out to folks and asked them if they have a counselor. You can identify those folks who need
Yeah.
more.
Yeah.
My former co-facilitator in my Lewy body group, I refer almost all folks to her for counseling. She's an LMFT, licensed marriage and family therapist, and she does a beautiful job. She understands not only the dementia piece, but the Lewy body piece. She
And
works, yeah.
that's what's so hard in the area that I live in. Um, People that are care partners want to go for themselves under the frustrations of how they're living and what their emotional part with what they're taking on with their person. And there's not a person in town that will actually identify that care partner's feelings unless you personally know someone
Mhm.
that counsels. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Yeah, they don't address a lot of times the root cause of the dementia piece, but there could be
Exactly.
some other things going on. Yeah,
Right.
very much so. You've got to have a very intuitive therapist that also has
Yes.
some background.
Yes.
So Heather, did we answer your question at all about the cost? And I think they go both ways because I've seen other ones that have charged for a series like what PAC does. I know in my area, my experience is most of them are free of charge, though, the ongoing groups. But I don't know if anyone else has any other idea. Teresa, I'm curious what you've done in the past.
Majority of the time I've been brought in as the speaker, not running the support group. So usually as the speaker, it's usually a paid thing. There have been a couple of times I've been asked to come in to a support group, and I love that because it's less formal. We all just sit around. I think they're more relaxed and they're used to their group. And so the questions are great. And so,
Mhm.
but most of the time I've done that, I was the speaker. So.
And yes, you guys definitely answered my question. Thank you. I figured there were a lot of perspectives on it, and I haven't started a group yet, so I was super excited to be on this call tonight, Sarah. So thank you. It's been something that's kind of been on my heart, feeling like it's something that I need to do because I'm feeling like there's a need out there. I don't know that I have any individuals yet who would do that, but when I do talk to people, I feel the need. And it just sort of feels like a support group should be free. But it's like that's why they need the support group, is because they really need the support and not be charged for it. But obviously if there's a means to being able to get paid, then that's great too.
I will say that the information in TIPA's advanced care partner support series, or advanced consultant, whatever you want to call it, the care partner support series, it is very similar to what we already know for PAC. There are a few different videos that are very care partner driven. And there are a couple in particular that really bring out the emotion of being a care partner and can really be helpful for the care partners. There's one where it talks about, when do you know when it's okay to place, if placement is an issue. And that is something that is not addressed in anything else that PAC does. But they also, during the Care Partner Support Series, they do free consulting with families. They don't charge for their consulting if they've paid for the support series. And I don't know what happens after the series, um, but I generally don't charge my people when they've gone to a support series. I probably should. If I had a coach, they would probably tell me I'm giving away my time. But I feel the same. I struggle with it, Susan, as far as is it something that we should charge for or not? But I will say the information in TIPA's support group, you don't get it anywhere else. And hers is the format of I'm going to teach you something and we're going to talk about it. I'm going to teach you something, then we're going to talk about it. So it's very different. That's the setup for the support group. So it's kind of like a workshop series. Really, it is. Is that your impressions, Cindy?
Yeah, that's why I was saying you can really, I can see the basis of charging for it because it is like you're going to a class.
Yeah.
And they do allow a brief check-in with folks, but it's not like, my group, the lady took her person to the doctor and the doctor said it was fine that he could drive and she's been pushing for him not to drive, and there was a lot of emotion and all of that that needed to unpack a little bit that I can't see doing much of that in the PAX, in the PAX series.
Oh,
It's much more of a workshopy thing, but it still has definitely validity, and I like having videos to show. I find that's a good entryway, talking with people and getting them to talk. So
yeah.
opening them up.
So while they call it a Care Partner Support Series, they're very careful not to call it a support group.
Mhm.
Right.
So
Good observation there, Karen. Very good.
well, I like it. I think it's a good program. I I struggle with whether I will continue to use it the way that it's published and the way that it's meant to be used. I don't know. I don't know if I'll use it or if I'll create something different and label it as inspired by, So
Just like
that's
we
just
do with
my
everything else. I
right.
understand.
I think that's typical
I
what
make
our
it my
breed,
own
that's what our
and put
breed
the
does.
inspired
Yeah.
by on.
We
Yeah.
learn and we make it our own because you have
Yep.
gifts, Karen, that the rest of us don't have. And so that'll be great that you learn that information and then turn around and use it the way you're wired to use it. It's good.
And I think that's what PAC means to do when they give us this stuff. They've left it open for us to modify it. And of course, none of us would really be doing what we're doing without them. So anyway. Anyway, and speaking on that, I do have to go because I have my support group to do.
Yeah.
So
We'll write it time.
thank you, Sarah, so much.